Can you hear me now? You can hear it on there? You sure? You want to check it?
I mean, I don't have my headphones, but that's the...
Oh, so you can't check
Yes,
it?
I can check it.
Okay, don't get that on film. It is on, right? You're filming me now? You shouldn't be. Try to get from here up, okay?
The role is at Garrett House.
Do I look good? You are going to edit all this, right? Because I've already filmed stuff probably shouldn't be on there. All right, what do you want me to do? You're going to ask me questions? I'm Mary Ann O'Hearn from Gaya, Boston Potta. So yes, so I have to do this virtually because I'm working from home right now. Well, I miss everybody, but I don't mind working from home. I am.
What is that, Pauline? Are you going to make
She said, tell the truth.
Are you making a cameo, Pauline?
Don't take her. I do. I miss it, you know, certain things. I'm working from home right now, so at GARE today, just to do this teaching experience for you guys. And normally I have this on, but I'm not going to wear that because you can. It's hard to understand what I'm saying without the mask. So if I put the mask on, you'll never get an R. You might even get some other letters missing. So that's it. We'll get started and see how it goes. Oh, this is tough. Let's see. These are the fun strokes. Okay, this is our main line. They're all underglazes for bisque. They're a 3-coat coverage, dip it in clear glaze and fire it. Now, if you wanted to put the fun strokes on, like 4 coats, put it on nice and heavy, and you covered every inch of the piece, you wouldn't have to clear glaze. It would still come out glossy, but you don't want to do that. You'd rather dip it into clear glaze. They go on bisque, they get dipped in clear glaze, put them in the kiln, so if there's any white bisque showing, it's okay. It'll all get dipped in clear glaze, so it's great for kids' projects or anything really. So that's the fun stroke line. These are fun strokes with fleckles in them, so they're called the fleckle line. Four, 5, 10, 15, 20, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 6, 7, 8. So there's 90 something, maybe about 93 fun strokes, including the fleckles. Most people are going to paint with fun strokes. That's the main line in clear glaze it. It's what most people will do. Then we have some specialty colors like pottery glazes, surface coats. Pottery glazes are my favorite because if I take the pottery glazes and they look horrible going in the kiln because they're all either red or brown. They don't look good. If you put, you put all this stuff on and then you throw that white, thick magic flow on them, doesn't look good. They go in the kiln and you're saying, oh God, they look horrible. But you open the kiln the next day and it still amazes me how you can open the kiln and go, wow, and you got this gorgeous like glass look that just is beautiful with all these different bright, high fire look colors. It's just a beautiful line, and it's always an experiment, like especially when I'm experimenting, I'm putting all kinds of different things on them, and then I put them in the kiln, and I don't know what's going to happen when I open it, and then I open it. It's great. Sometimes you get a, ugh, but most of the time you get, wow, look at that. That is awesome. That looks beautiful, and then I can't wait to get it out there and show everybody. So that's the pottery glaze experience. Okay, so this side of the board right here is pottery glazes, okay? The pottery glaze colors, okay, which are very reactive colors, These are reactive colors. These here are a little bit more non-reactive, which I'll go into a little bit after. Part of the pottery glaze line, we have a couple of crushed crystals and we have a couple of crystals, which are bigger crystals that burst in the kiln. These are more like crystal glazes, okay? They have bigger bursts, so they burst in the kiln and make these different colors on it, okay? These are crushed crystals. They're all part of the pottery glaze line, but these are crushed crystals. So the crystals in these are very fine, so they, they're crushed. They look very nice. They actually come out, those are like they're the same crystals. It's just some of them are bigger and these are all small ones. So you got the pottery glaze line, which has crushed crystals, and then all the pottery glaze colors. There's more to go over with the pottery glazes, but just to go over the whole line, we also have this whole group of, I think there's 10 colors, which are the surface coats. Now the surface coats, they look like the fun strokes, but they don't. They're already got to have a strong glaze in them. They're a glaze, so they don't have that same. You don't have to dip them in clear glaze, any of these. So we mostly use the black and the white because you can put pottery glazes on top of them. You can put fun strokes on top of the surface coats, and they'll be nice and crisp. The lines will be nice and crisp. They'll look nice. If you wanted to use, we will use the orange for a pumpkin. You could do a big pumpkin with orange and not have to dip it. You could do, something with red Santa. It's a nice bright red. You could do a lobster or any kind of thing like that just you don't have to dip it because you're just going to put 3-coat coverage of the surface coat. Pottery glazes, surface coats, specialty glazes, they don't get dipped. The only color that gets dipped is fun strokes. No dip on the pottery glazes or the surface coat. So, the pottery glazes, okay? All these pottery glazes are reactive pottery glazes, okay? These are all pottery glazes that flow very well. So if you have this, like the dark blue, this is a dark blue pottery glaze. It's got sandalwood on top of the blue, and then magic flow on top of everything else. So when I say this thing is covered in blue, the whole thing first with 3 coats, then there's 2 to 3 more coats of this sandalwood, which is okay with pottery glazes to go a little heavy. Then it has one very heavy coat of magic flow on top, which will flow down, and it flows a little more than what you put it. So, but that's what makes this look like this. With all of this, the thing you want to be careful of is if you're going to put a lot of layers on the pottery glazes, it's okay to layer it, but you don't want to layer it all the way down to here. Say you don't want any blue to show, you just want this brown color. The only time to get this sandalwood to look like this is to go over this blue. So say you wanted to go down to here, you can't, because if you put all the glazes down low, it gets so heavy at the bottom that it drips here, and you have these big glass nubs that you can't get off. So you don't want that to happen. That's why it goes halfway down. Pottery glazes is about layering and experimenting with different colors, different layers. It has a more organic look, a high fire look. It's a low fire glaze with a high fire look. And for the people that come into the studios and they say, I don't know what to do. I'm not an artist. I can't do this. They don't even want to trace a pattern because they're just nervous about it. Send them over to the pottery glazes. Keep the pottery glazes separate from the fun strokes, and you have this whole look, a whole display that shows all these beautiful pieces of how to do different things with pottery glazes. And anybody can do it. It doesn't take, a kid could do this and it would be okay. It's pretty forgiving. You fire it, it comes out good almost no matter what. If you accidentally dip the pottery glazes, the world could literally end. No. That's what people think. They think that if you dip the pottery glaze, oh my God, what's going to happen? The only thing that will happen is going to be glossy either way. It might be shinier, I don't know, but it's going to be, it could change the color. So if you're trying to match something, you're probably not going to match it. But if you dip it by accident, it should be still okay unless you put it on super thick and then your clear glaze is super thick. Then you might have some issues with bubbling or something, but more than likely not. But I mean, it's not made to be dipped. But if you accidentally dip any of our stuff, it's not going to do anything really bad. In fact, you might say, wow, I love that color. That changed the whole look and I love it and I want to do that again. So there's no rules to the pottery glazes, except for don't let it drip to the bottom. So if you have that new employee that decides to dip your pottery glazes, don't fire them yet. Just give them another lesson because they didn't blow up the kiln. They didn't do anything really bad. It just, because sometimes, most of the times you can tell which are pottery glazes before they're fired, but sometimes you can't. Some of the colors you can't. So I could see how somebody would dip it, especially if it doesn't have magic flow. It's easy to dip it anyway, but it'll be okay. These 3 pieces of pottery glazes that, are flowing, very flowing. They're very reactive. And if you look at these 3 pottery glazes, these are pottery glazes that are not as flowing. They still have this two-tone look to them where you see the brown. Do you see how it has brown and blue? Same thing with this red, only I splattered it, but you could see the back side. So they're very beautiful and they still have that two-tone look to it. But the difference is with a non-reactive pottery glaze, what I mean by non-reactive is you can stamp, like this is just a stamp, and it's black, fun stroke black, so you can stamp any of the fun strokes on top of it. This is just a stamp, and this is all black on the blue, but it turns the black almost to an antique-y looking brownish color. If you look at this red one, you can see I used a real sponge and cut out some pieces and stamped it. You could see this is black, but it doesn't look black once it's on these rustic looking pottery glazes. So it kind of makes it even more interesting to do that because that's beautiful, just stamped on. So somebody who has no artistic ability at all can do this mug. It's 3 coats of that color, the blue, and then it's a stamp on there. This is all just 3 coats and then a stamp. I mean, you can't go wrong. You don't dip it, just fire it, and this is what you get. So you don't have to be artistic to do that. Well, come in here.
Hey, come and follow me.
Follow me. Follow me.
Okay, now you're
That piece of glass, isn't that weird? That was from years ago when we were doing the glass. Okay, I just want to go over this right up here. Can you get that?
What do you want me to get?
See those plates up there?
No.
Okay, so these plates up here are all pottery glazes, okay? Just to give you an example of what they can do, okay? If you see these first two plates, okay, you can see that they both have different numbers. One has canyon clay on the whole thing, and then this one has volcanic ash on the whole thing. But the top coat on this one and this one are the same. They're both sandalwood. Now, don't forget this is flat too. They're fired flat. If they're fired flat, it gets that bubbly look. It almost looks like crystals, but they're not. It's just the way it's 3 coats and 3 coats. So you got 6 coats of glazes on these, and they look beautiful. And this one has a little bit of magic flow on the edge just to show how that looked also flat. So instead of flowing it down a mug or a vertical piece, laying it flat can make it look really awesome. These two over here, the 2 middle ones, not middle, but let's see, the one that says, see the 9528? Anything that says 9528 is sandalwood. That's the number for sandalwood. So you can see sandalwood, again, looks different on this one, looks different on the green. You could see the difference in the sandalwood on all of these plates. So in that one down there is, that one is something someone else did, and we were shocked how it came out. So it's pottery patina with midnight stone on top. And look at how that looks. It almost looks like a sea of the ocean. You know, so you can get some really beautiful looks with the pottery glazes. Let's see, what else do I got that's out here? Okay, that's the pottery glazes. This is a good, this is on the surface coats. This is what it looks like solid. Now, I solid coated this and this back plate. Then on the back plate, I cut out paper out of off the Cricut machine, and so you can use any kind of cutter like that. And I took the paper and I wet it and put it down. Okay. Then I took a blue fun stroke, because remember you can put fun strokes on top of the surface coat. So I put just a light one coat of like fun stroke blue, like a darker blue than this blue on top. Then I peeled off my paper, and that's what gave me this look on all of them. And I did that to show how the surface coats, you can put the fun stroke on top, you can use the paper technique and get a nice crisp lines with all the fun strokes. Okay, that's surface coats. Do you got it? Are you following along? Am I going too fast? Okay, let me think what else I got. Now we're going to talk about party paints. That's party paints, not potty paints. That's how I would say it, but so you understand me, I'm going to say party paints. Very difficult to put that R in there, but the party paints are acrylic line. They're an acrylic line. Now this is a table full of stuff that's done with acrylics. You can see the kind of depth you can get with acrylics. It's very attractive. It's flat. They are, let's see, they are self-sealing. We took some of these pieces and we put them outside. We let it rain and pour. We actually forgot about them. They were out there for a long time, for a couple of months. And I was like, oh yeah, we put those out there. We better go check on them. So we went and brought them in, and they survived. None of the paint was peeling off of it, anything. So they are self-sealing. Would I put them out there all winter? No, I would not. But you know, you can. They are self-sealing. It's just that they're not going to be shiny. That's what you can't expect with the acrylic paints, unless you spray them with a sealer or something. We don't recommend that because they're self-sealing, and if you look at all these, this is beautiful in the matte. It's nice in the matte. Why would you want that to be glossy? It's just very attractive. Look at this one. You know, you could just get some new looks, some really cool looks. Like this is painted a dark, very dark blue underneath, like a midnight blue on the bottom, and then I dry brushed this purple on top, which you go across the grain so that you still see your dark color underneath. And look at how nice this looks, and it's very soft looking. All the colors do that. I mean, you look at this, you get to see, if you dry brush across the black that you put underneath, I paint the whole thing black first, and then I dry brush on top of it. Takes a few coats, but it goes pretty fast and gives you this look. See how you can see the black underneath the red? That's a really neat look. The benefit of having the party paints in a studio would be, you know, that let's just say the only negative about it is that you could get it on, if you get it on your clothes, so they should wear an apron or something, because if you get it on your clothes, it don't come out. Whereas fun strokes, pottery glaze, no matter what other glaze we have, you can get it on your clothes, they'll wash out in the wash. Acrylics do not. Other than that, everything is a positive, because you can do canvas with the acrylics, you can paint on glass, you can paint on the ceramic, and they can take it home the same day. So it's nice if a child can come in, they can paint a little tree or something, they go home with it, you know. I mean, some of them want that instant gratification. So that would be a benefit of the acrylics, just to be able to make and take, really. You're making it, you're taking it home the same day. And you have the, you know, the people who compete with you, the Plaster Fun Times, all the, you know, the people who just do acrylics. Now you have acrylics and glazes, so they're not taking anything away from you. You can do that. So So let's review. So people who come into your studio are mostly going to use the Fun Strokes, the Fleckles, the clear glaze. That's, well, they're not going to use the clear glaze. You'll be clear glazing it, but they'll be using the Fun Strokes. The people who want to use, like, they're not artistic, they don't know what to do, you're going to send them to the pottery glazes because it's very, very simple. And you don't have to dip it. It's a very simple thing. And they come out beautiful. The people who want to just come in, take something home the same day, then you can have these party paints, which is the acrylic line, and they can go home with them the same day. So we have 3 things to offer them. Got it? Okay, so these 2 roosters, who wore it better? The Fun Stroke or the acrylic? The party paint or the Fun Stroke? Anyway, that's each of them. They're both beautiful. It's just like when someone wears the same outfit to the Oscars. Who wore it better? Which one? I need some water. I need a break, Jamie.
Am I running you ragged?
Huh?
Am I running you ragged?
You're running me ragged. I need a break. I need some water. Okay, we're in the kiln room. As you can see, we have lots of kilns. We have Scott, we have Paragon, we have Scott, Paragon, and a Gear kiln. So we have plenty of kilns. We have, these are posts, okay, these are posts. All of these, we have all different sizes, so you should have, if you have a studio, you should have several different size posts. These are brand new ones, these ones here.
What do posts do?
Post holds the shelf, the kiln shelf, okay? Now, these are stilts. You're gonna need stilts. You're gonna need some of these. Well, it's good to have some of these eliminated stilts, which are these. They can even be stuck together like this. You can layer the bottom. Things can stand right on them. Even though it's an eliminated stilt, if you look at it, it's hard to see the way it is, but if you sit a piece on this with glazes, you are not going to get a whole bunch of marks, tons of these marks on your piece. You won't have stilt marks. You'll have a few because I think the stilts on these are kind of different heights a little bit so that doesn't happen, but it allows you to, there's certain things that you need to put on this, like a little letter or just certain things that will go on this nicely.
Like a flat ornament.
Yeah, like a flat ornament, anything like that. They're quick. It makes it a lot quicker than trying to get the other little stilts on it. We sell this hexagon one. We don't sell the other ones that you see, but we sell this hexagon one. This stilt here is what I use for to sit a Christmas tree on because it's nice and sturdy. It's heavy. It won't break down. Our stilts are pretty darn good actually because I've seen some people who have stilts and they fall apart. Okay, so these don't fall apart. I've had these for years. My favorite stilt is this one. This is great to put a lid on, like say a canister lid. You can sit it right on here and it'll only come to here so it won't touch the bottom. Because otherwise how you're going to stilt a lid, it's difficult. This is a great stilt for a lid. But you can also, this is a great stilt too because it's this height. Now when you're loading something in the kiln, like say a platter, if you have a platter, I should get a platter and show it. All right, stay right there. Let me get a couple of things because I want to show. I'm looking for a lid. Of course, I can't find one. I was looking for a lid, but I can't find one. Okay, so this is very, very important. Okay, this is very important. Should get that on film. Very important. A platter this size if you don't want it to split in the kiln. Let me get these out of the way. Okay, so if you're firing a platter like this, and you put it on, say, a stilt like this. If you put it on this stilt and you sit it on the shelf, the kiln shelf, okay? It's gonna be this close to the shelf, the kiln shelf. The kiln shelves heat up, okay? They get very, very hot. The more furniture you have in the kiln, furniture and pieces, you know, the more it heats up in there, and the longer it takes for the firing to cool down and stuff. So, but if you want to take, that kiln shelf holds a lot of heat. They're very, very heavy. As you can see, I'm trying to find a kiln shelf that I can show you.
Is this it?
See, if you look in here, yeah, those are kind of raggedy ones, but the kiln shelves, you can see they're thick. See the sides, how thick they are? Okay, so kiln shelves are thick. If you take this platter and you sit it right on the kiln shelf, okay, when the kiln cools down, the kiln goes into cool down. It starts to cool down. This piece of bisque is going to cool down a lot quicker than that shelf because it holds the heat. And the stress from that can cause this platter to split right in half. So if you go to your kiln and you see that the platter is split right in half, it's probably why. It's probably because you have it very close to the shelf, and that's what happened. So placement in the kiln of a platter this big is important. So, which is these two pieces. Great for this. Hold your piece, okay? See, they hold your piece. It's perfect. It's got plenty of space between the kiln and the shelf and the bisque. If you put another piece on top, make sure you want to have a stilt that's high enough. This might work. This is okay. You can go to that length. But so that now you can see, if I put another shelf on top of here, I've got space between here and I've got space between here. So that is going to cool off all by itself, not going to split. The chances of it splitting are very slim, where it doesn't mean that it will always split if you put it right near the shelf, but you don't want to put it right on the shelf because, right this close to the shelf, you're taking a chance. The other thing to keep in mind, and it's because it's a big platter. Now, if I had like a dinner plate, I could put a dinner plate on this, it'd be fine. But if it's bigger than that, or if it's a big platter like this, you definitely should be using these kind of stilts. Especially, you may need two because it's big. Could you center it? Yes, you could, and probably be okay. That's probably fine too. But if you can use two, it might be safer. The other thing to keep in mind about these stilts is these stilts also, if you're trying to load the kiln and you're trying to, you need space, you can put a piece down here like a flat dish and then put a piece up on top of it. So before you even put your shelf on. So you can, stagger pieces if you have these stilts also. That's why this is the favorite stilt. You need to have some of these. These are the best. My favorite stilt, okay? When I had my studio quite a while ago, my sister used to load the kiln. There is an art to loading the kiln. I mean, I would come in and she'd have two kilns loaded. I only had two kilns. They were this size here, these Scott kilns. I had two like this. She would load I'd come in and I'd have so much pottery in it, there'd be nothing on my shelves. And I'd say, where's all the pottery? They're in the kiln. When I opened that kiln the next day, you couldn't believe how much she loaded. Now, with plates and bowls, you need to have space and stuff. The kids' pieces, they could be pretty close to each other. So she would load everything as much as she can, plates, bowls, dishes, whatever. Then she'd save the whole top row for all the little potty animals and stuff. And you'd look in that kiln, and none of them would be touching. They'd all look beautiful. She just had that knack of loading a kiln. If you get somebody like that that can load your kiln that well and fit a lot of stuff in it and still have the air flowing and everything, don't, keep them. Don't fire them ever. Loading the kiln You cannot have the pieces touch at all. If they touch each other, they will fuse together. Okay, if that does happen by accident, kind of knock it, so that it parts, and use the Dremel tool to Dremel it down, refire it. It's usually okay. It's usually savable. Okay, but you don't want them to touch each other. They can't touch the kiln sides. They can't touch the kiln shelf. Okay, unless it's dry-footed on the bottom, which dry-footed means no glaze on the bottom. Don't ever do this. Some people think that they can dry foot this. Very important. This is very important too. I have a lot of important stuff to say. Everything is very important and very simple, right? Okay, so you want to take it. Some people take this and they say, well, I want to dry fit. I don't want to have to stilt it at all. First of all, with a platter, you already know the reason why you shouldn't do that, okay? But even if I was holding a mug or a little small bowl or plate or anything, people think that they can sponge this area off. They paint it, they dip it, and then they sponge this area off, and then they can lay it right on the shelf. Okay, you cannot do that. Everything needs to be stilted. If it's a kid's piece, you could dry foot the bottom, you could sit it on a shelf, right? It'd probably be fine, but you're probably going to have something on the bottom because people sign their names. So just get used to dipping and loading and stilting. You have to stilt it. If that happens and you decide that you want to swipe that and you fire in, I know people that have done it. They fire bowls, mugs, plates, all that stuff, and then they send people home with it, and they've got a bottom that has no glaze on it. No clear glaze, no nothing on it. It's just this bisque. This is just earthenware. Now, if it was stoneware, you'd be fine. You can put it in the dishwasher, wash it, whatever. If it's not stoneware and it's earthenware, and you have this showing, this bisque, it will absorb water. So the more you wash it, you put it in a dishwasher, do anything with it, the more wet that bisque area gets. The water will eventually climb into the rest of the bisque, and it will cause the glaze to craze, which means all of a sudden you'll notice little cracks all along your piece. That's what crazing is. It's all little fine cracks. Now, if you were to take black paint and put on it, you'd see where all the cracks are. Sometimes you can't even see them, but you would see them. So that's because sometimes the water will get into that area that isn't glazed, and it will cause, because what happens is when the bisque gets wet, it expands. When it expands, the glaze has nowhere to go. The glaze ain't going to expand, but the bisque is. So the bisque is expanding a little bit because it's wet, and then the glaze has nowhere to go, so the glaze starts to craze and crack because it gets separated. So
Is that the same
don't want to do that.
Is that the same as shivering?
No. Shivering is when you fire it, you pull out the piece, and all of a sudden it's, when it's fired, it turns to glass, right? So the glass just falls off. The glossy stuff that you just had falls right off the bisque. It won't adhere to the bisque. You cannot fix it. It's not fixable at all. Shivering is not fixable. Sometimes it's due to, there can be a lot of reasons for shivering, but sometimes it's just due to the bisque not being right in the first place, fired correctly in the first place. Anyway, it's another whole thing. But so that's what shivering is. Shivering will fall off the piece. It'll just pick right off, and there's no fixing it. Then there's crawling. Crawling on the bisque looks almost like shivering. Some people don't know the difference, but crawling will crawl back from the bisque, and when it crawls, you'll see the bisque, but it will be a tight edge. You won't be able to pick it off like you can with shivering. You could just pick the glass right off because it's not adhering at all. This sort of just pulls back. Sometimes people put the glaze on so heavy that that it just will crawl. And if it does crawl, or they have oil on their fingers, or they're eating potato chips and then they're painting and the kids are handling it, and then they put the glaze on, the glaze doesn't adhere right. Crawling usually can be fixed. You can put some extra colors on it and refire it, it'll be okay. Shivering can't be fixed. Crazing with the little cracks, you can finish the glazing of it and you can refire it. It'll take all the crazing out, but it could craze again down the road. Sometimes crazing can happen months later, I don't know. But you want to try to make sure your piece is completely covered. And if you get crazy and somebody comes back and says, this has a bunch of cracks in it, and you notice that you did seal the bottom, it wasn't like you dry-footed or did anything wrong, refire it for them and give it back to them. It should be okay. I don't know for how long. It could happen again, but you could take a shot at it.
So you're firing something and the power goes out. Ugh.
Okay. If you're in the middle of firing and the power goes out, people say, what do I do now? It's only halfway fired. Just start the kiln over again. It just will go right back up to it'll go right from the start up to temperature. It's like refiring something. Of course, if you can refire something, you can refire it if the power goes out. It's not going to ruin your piece or do anything. There isn't anything that you can, a lot of people say, what if I put this in the kiln? What if I do this? Is my kiln going to explode? Nothing's going to explode in the kiln unless you have very wet clay and it's solid. That might explode in the kiln because it has no, hollow area for it. But anyway, the kiln is it's pretty good. I love the digital aspect of Scott. It's very easy to use. I've changed thermocouples. I've changed the whole guts of this kiln when I had my studio. I couldn't afford to just hire somebody, so I said, well, I'm going to have to suck it up and learn how to do it. So I pulled the kiln apart. Scott is very good at taking you right through everything. They will take you through the whole thing and help you fix it. I've called them. I followed the instructions step by step. They were very easy. I've always been able to fix the Scott kilns. Whether it's a thermocouple or one time I blew a fuse and the whole thing, everything in there was black and burnt. I had to put the whole thing back together again, and I did it. So they're very easy to fix. Now the Paragon, as much as I like the Scott digital thing better, the Paragon, the thing I like about this Paragon, and maybe Scott has these kilns, I don't know, but it's not as tall. In me being a short little person, being short, I can't reach inside the kiln, so those taller ones are harder to reach. So this here, it's lower, it's wider. I just like that better than the tall ones because I have a harder time getting in them. And it has this spring-loaded cover. And, I'm getting old. My arms are not as strong as they used to be. So having this spring load is nice. If you have to have these are very, very heavy. The lids are very heavy. Another thing to keep in mind with the kilns is you see these lids. The thing very important too, kilns are when you load them, an old cone 06, which is all our glazes are a cone 06. You can go to a cone 06. You can, it's going to heat up. It's going to cool down. After it's cooled down, some people say, when can I open the kiln? Should I open it in, 400 degrees, when it's at 500, when it's at 200? So rule of thumb is I crack the kiln at about 300. I usually crack it. I put a little spot to let it start cooling down and then go from there. Once it reaches about 200 or 150, I would just open the lid. I think it'd be okay. It's just cooling it down slow. Common sense. If this is on the top, a big platter like this is right here, and the kiln is like 400 or 500 degrees, you decide to open the lid. You're not only taking a chance of splitting this in half, you're going to see these little cracks in the kiln? You're going to get more cracks in your lid if you open the kiln. When it's the more you let it cool down, the less you're going to wreck your lid. Okay? See, this one has hardly any. It has one or two, but so as you can see, these kilns are old. They're pretty banged up, but they still work. These kilns all still work good. Sometimes the coils need to be changed. That's another whole thing. Using witness cones is really smart. Witness cone is this. We sell these. These are witness cones, shelf cones. Take a cone like this. They come like this, stuck together. You just pull them apart so they look like this. And you take one of these. I don't know if we have a sample of it. I think we do. Okay, you put them on a tile like this. Little tile like this. Now, you don't have to do this every single firing, can you? Yes. It might get expensive. You have to do it every firing. So this is how it goes in. It goes in to the kiln looking like this, okay? Now this is a perfect firing. This is good. This is a good firing. Anything, if this comb bends and goes to this edge right here, at least bends and goes to that, you got a good firing. If it goes, I mean, some kilns are different. Scott tends to fire a little hotter, I think, so it will look like this instead of just going to here. Okay, but that's good. That's a good firing. It's still a good firing. Now, if it barely bends, then your firing didn't go right. Okay, if it bends and goes like this and it smooshes down like this, the pieces might look good, but they are a little overfired. Okay, so that's what these witness cones are for. Now, if I'm having a problem with my glazes and they're not looking right, I don't know what's wrong with my kiln. The first thing I'm going to do is take these witness cones and I'm going to put one on the bottom, one in the center, and one at the top on one of these, so that I know. Now, if I all of a sudden the top layer or the middle layer is not bending, I know it's probably just a coil that's out and everything else fired good. I'll know that it's just a coil that's out. Maybe it's coil got to be changed. The programming, okay, I'm just going to do, no, this one. Scott is good for the digital thing. Okay, so the programming on the kiln. Now, right now, you can see it's shut off, it's on complete. This is just a quick lesson on program because you can do so much with glass and program the whole thing. But for our cone 6 firing, you see all these things here, okay? The ramp holder is what you're going to use if you were doing glass. But for our firing, for bisque, for an 06 firing, you're going to press this cone fire, okay? First, I'm going to make sure it's on stop. Okay, now it's not doing anything. I'm going to press cone fire. It's going to say cone 06. If I want to change that, I can do it right here and then press enter. But I don't need to change it. It's already on 06. Press enter. Now it's going to say speed. You see MED, medium. Okay, we always tell people to fire it on medium. Medium or slow is good. Fast firing can cause you a lot of problems. Okay, so you can some people do it, but we try to tell people don't fast fire. Your safest bet is on medium. It's not going so slow that it's taking forever. Medium works good for us. So medium is good, so I'm going to press enter. Then the hold time. Some people put like a 10-minute hold. We don't use a hold on ours. Unless I'm having a problem, I wouldn't tell anybody to use the hold time. What the hold time does is it brings the kiln up to the temperature, then it holds it for, like if you put in 10 minutes, it will hold that temperature for 10 minutes before it starts cooling down. We don't use a hold time. It just gets to temperature, then it starts to cool down, okay? Because I don't have any problems. So I press enter, okay? Now I can press start. Now the kiln is on. Make sure it says on, because I pressed it and thought it was on and it wasn't. It will make clicks throughout the whole cycle. Right up until it's done, it will make clicks. So you'll see the temperature rising, okay? I'm gonna stop this one because we don't need it on right now. So that's basically the easiest way to do. Now, say I did this, always did a cone 6 firing, I could just come over here right now, press stop, press start, and I've already know my temp, it's already in there. It stays that way. But it's very wise to get your employees that's going to run the kiln to go through the thing. It only takes a second. Go through the stop, the cone fire, the medium speed. Because if somebody did a piece of clay and had it on an 04, you're going to wreck your pieces. So you don't want to take that chance. So always get them to do that. Then they know how to do that. And they're not just press, because you just press on and the last person fired a piece of clay, because a lot of people, studios fire clay. You don't want that to happen. Got it? Okay. We ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go. Let's go. Follow me. Come on. Oh, is that stayed open? That was already open. Follow me this way. This way. You're funny. All as we have left is the dipping.